Hello everyone and welcome back to another brand new GP Bikes video. Now today we have a special little video, definitely not little by any means, it's nearly 50 minutes long, but the purpose of today's video, I have started a new league and basically this is my complete process of making a setup for a bike and track combination when I'm going league racing. So if you don't know, I'm racing this Sunday at the time of recording this. I'm recording this on the 6th. I think I've recorded the actual gameplay on the 4th. So yeah, basically Barcelona R6 is the combination. I've not ridden this bike here much. I say a lot of this again in the video, but the kind of long and short of it is that I picked the bike that I hadn't much time on and a track that has a bit of everything, and of course I'm going racing here at the weekend, so it's one of those ones where I'll slowly build into it and I'll explain what I'm thinking, how I feel, and what kind of visual keys I see from the bike when on track and stuff. And it's just, again, it's one of my kind of unfiltered videos. There's a couple of things I say wrong in the video that I kind of correct myself throughout the video. I have edited it a lot out just because I don't want it to seem, I think again I say this in the video, that I don't want the video to be like, oh I changed this 2 seconds faster, changed this, oh another half second, I made it out like that, everything I touch turns to gold. There's a couple of things in here that I changed that I'm probably right and I actually go back and revert, and that is very much how setups work. You make a small change, it might be slightly too far one way, it mightn't be enough, and you change it back and forth. So again, I've kind of rambled on here again in the intro. Get yourself a hot drink, a martini or something of your choice, and sit down and get comfortable, because it is definitely a long video and there's a lot of talking and there's a lot of information thrown at you. But again, I think a lot of people out there will really enjoy this type of video where they can kind of follow along and see in their own steps where and what they're doing, and people can just see, because I'm asked so many times like, what are my steps to making setup, and I don't have one. I just go off what I feel and I give probably little nuggets of information throughout the video, and I explain a lot throughout the video. But anyway, let's jump over to me 2 days ago. Okay, so here we are in the garage, just approved default. I've only done that one lap just for that kind of intro phase there. Haven't looked at anything, don't know anything about it. Thankfully X1 has put in the little graphic there so we can dial the tires in. I'm going to do an out lap, maybe one flying lap, and see and go from there. Now I've not really ridden this R6 much. Every time I kind of play this mod, I kind of jump around from bikes to bike. So I have played it a small bit, but from there, it seems like the rider's a bit strong. But anyway, yeah, I don't know too much about the characteristics of this bike. So it'll be interesting to see what we learn here early on. But I'll kind of explain more around the lap, really, what we're kind of looking for on this opening lap. So when it kind of comes to a 600, it's a bit different. I suppose the main reason I'm using this mod is I'm starting the league next week on this. Well, depending on when this goes out, I'm recording this on January the 4th. Tomorrow I have the final races, plural, 4 races that is, of the road racing one on the Honda, on the SBK 2017 pack. And the following weekend I start another league. Trying to keep the race fitness and sharpness up. Race fitness, race sharp, I suppose, is the best way to say it. But a bit more of a conventional kind of world super sport leagues. I think it's only 4 rounds, so it's not the longest one in the world. But again, it's just good to keep ourselves a bit active on the game. Because I know when there's not a league, I kind of tend to drift out of it, because unless there's new mods or something, or making content, I don't really jump on as much as I used to. I don't really play with friends as often as I probably wish. But when I'm league racing, traditionally I spend a lot of time kind of dialing the bike in and practicing. But yeah, that's one of the main reasons I picked this bike. Also the fact that I have very little time on this R6, so I won't have any kind of ideas of what the bike needs. If I took a very common pack that I use very often, I'd be coming in going, right, I already know for a fact I like the bike set up such and such, and it wouldn't be kind of an authentic video. Whereas this bike, I don't really know what I want from it. So I'll be using these couple laps here, just trying to sponge up every bit of information I can and see what I can tell. So already it looks like the gearing is short, so red line is bang on 16,000 RPM. To be fair, other than that, the outlap, now obviously it wasn't on the limit, and I'm nowhere near the limit, wasn't that bad, so it doesn't feel that bad. I think it's probably with 600s, or anything less than probably 800, 750s, they're usually a bit easier to ride anyway, so the setup maybe not as important, but it there's probably a bit of a less skill gap sometimes on these smaller bikes, because it's not as hard to kind of put the power down and a lot of time they're a bit lighter, so they don't kind of push into the corners hard. So there is differences to setting up one of these compared to, we'll say, if it was an R1. But so I just noticed the gears are bam, 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 bam. They're very, very close together. So I'd like a bit more from that, because I'll feel like that sector 1 and 2, I'll be in the middle of gears in these long corners. When you're on the edge of the tire like this, you don't want to be trying to change gear, because you're going to want to be consistently in peak power when you're picking up the throttle, so you get out of the corner well, but you don't want to be shifting too much. We don't have any... Oh, right. We don't have any electronics, just engine braking to play with, so no anti-wheelie, no traction, which isn't a bad thing. Makes them all a little bit harder. No, I don't think... I'm going to just try and spin it up here on exit. But yeah, it does spin if you take the piss, which I suppose is probably not too bad, but straight away there I've noticed I'm going to probably do another couple laps and probably just do it with science to see what I actually do, kind of set an actual lap time. But there's a bit of just vague understeer, I feel, as well as the gearbox is slightly too close together for me, so I'm going to have to deal with that. And once we've them sorted, I'll be able to kind of get closer to a decent speed, and then we go from there in terms of actually finding problems, because at the moment I'm not going fast enough, kind of coasting into a lot of these corners, so I'm not really finding the issues. But there is just a hint at the moment for me of just kind of vague understeer from the front, which I would like to address, because I don't like a bike that doesn't turn, especially at a track like this. So there will be multiple ways we can address it, but it depends if it's kind of understeer on brakes, on throttle, in between the kind of transitioning phase. Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do, but we're just trying to push on for this lap. That was actually a rider error, so if you probably noticed, I double tapped the gears. I didn't mean to do that. It was a bit of a twitch, and that double kind of clutch kick from changing gear was the reason I got spot off there. So I'm going to shut up for a second, try and do a few laps, and just kind of vaguely understand the bike a bit more, and then I'll explain my thoughts, and then in further explain more what I'm actually doing when I go to change the setup. I suppose one thing to note is that probably the setup that I end up with at the end of this little mini session here probably won't be the one I race come next Sunday. Usually day one you don't ever find a perfect setup. You kind of get a good idea of what you like and what you don't like. You kind of figure out what you don't like with the bike, and then you kind of make some assertions to kind of fix that. But mainly you'll kind of just maybe kind of shape the bike a bit more into what you want. Like through air, I feel like off throttle, on throttle, it just isn't doing anything in terms of getting the nose in. So that'll be something I want to try and address. And I already have a couple of ideas straight away from riding it, because it tips in nicely, but then just it feels like it just hits a bit of a block where I just can't get it leaned over anymore. And I can kind of, if I can get it spinning, it'll turn, but then you're on the edge of the tire spinning, kind of wide open throttle, so it's a bit risky. And you can say it's either as it sits, it does kind of pull around, which is obviously realistic and right, but at the moment that's maybe a qualifying strategy, and that wouldn't be something I'd be looking to apply for a whole race. So yeah, mainly at the moment it's that tad understeer, and I just have to sort the gearing and then kind of push on from there. So I'm going to probably do somewhere in the 46 back, yeah, 46.7 is the kind of first thing. Again, a lot of corners are not really on the limits with the brakes yet, so there's a lot of time in that lap, and obviously my gearing is wrong. So we're going to jump back there and I kind of just probably talk out loud really of what I'm thinking in terms of what I'm going to change. So here in the setup window, right, we have SE1, SE2 and a rain tire, SE0 and SE1. Tire purchase for now, I'm not really going to worry about, because there's just dynamic faults with the bike at the moment. Like the gearing, a lot of people ask me, I have a couple of people in my Discord lately who are really trying to get into this game and trying to understand setups, and I get this sort of question of what exactly should I focus on first? What is the one thing you change on the setup first? And it's not really there's no one thing I go, oh my god, you have to do this first. You can kind of come at a lot of things. So the first thing I would do is not touch the setup. I'd ride the bike, because like a lot of bikes can come in a decent enough base setting. So I wouldn't be mad to run out and change it. Now obviously I have serious flaws because we're hitting the limit of wear too early. So of course you can adjust your front and rear sprockets, which will make, as you can see, I don't think we don't have the capacity to be hitting 225 miles an hour. I'm going to just put on default here so I can see what I was at. I was kind of hitting the limiter maybe just as we were crossing the line. So what's that, 6 miles an hour? I'm going to go one down on the rear, because that's less of a dramatic one. So that's a lie. I'm going to go one up. Oh, it's a big jump. One up in the front, because I feel like everywhere the bike is bam, 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 kind of just screaming at me. It is 600, I get that, but I don't want to be constantly like at lean when I'm in the middle of the track, when I'm on the brakes. I don't want to be always trying to have to change gear, because I feel the more you have to change gear, it's kind of time lost really. So you want to minimize it as much as possible. Now, one thing I did notice, I feel like I need a bit more engine brake, so we're going to just change that in here. There's no point changing on track, because as soon as you go back to the pits, it'll reset. At the moment, right, again, I've done just 2 things have changed there now, so immediately I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that for now. I'm not going to, like, there's other things now, again, that in my head were like, right, I know I want this more, but I'm not going to do it yet because I haven't explained why I want it, so I'm going to leave it for now. Going to just basically go back, verify this change here is improved. It might be too long, it might be still too short, I don't know, and of course I want to see, is this engine braking change too much, is it too little? So again, this is probably not one of the most edited videos you'll ever see from me, or kind of, I suppose, well formed, but this is probably what you'd actually use more often. There's no point me giving a video where I cut, make 4 changes and I find 2 seconds, because that's not realistic. That's not what happens. This engine brake might be terrible and I might crash immediately, but like, yeah, rubbish, I need to go to 3 engine braking. Probably won't be, but we'll see. It's something I always do coming out of the pits. It's not necessary, just feels fun. And again, the real riders do it, so I feel like a real bike rider. So yeah, and of course, a little cheeky wheelie. Can't really get it up that much on an R6, but we'll see. Again, I've changed the gearing. It is a bit harder, so immediately I can see the gearing is just less dramatically in the rev range. So we'll see. It's more, I want to see what I'm at the back straight. As well, you need to think as well, right? I'm kind of aiming this video for people who are trying to maybe make a setup for a league race. So already I can slide the rear more because it's less, I suppose, I'm not really on the limit of the tire yet. I feel like straight away it's giving me a bit more progressiveness on pushing the bike out. We'll see if we can do it again here. Again, I have it more in my hand now, so even if I want to try and drift a bit more now, it's straight away a bit more natural. But what I was saying is that this video is not really made for your kind of, I'm just going to jump on tonight, do some laps, oh, I'm going to do this setup, will follow the video. This is more like if you wanted to actually go and take part in some leagues. I know a lot of people look at a setup as the be all and end all. If I have the best setup, I'll win. Not really. If you have a really good setup, you'll be more consistent, you'll be more comfortable, and you'll start to understand where and how you ride and where you can go quick. A lot of people believe that the setup is just, you just bolt it on and the bike immediately has an extra 10 horsepower and you have some magic front forks that allow you to basically have no issue in braking really hard, and also when you get off the brakes the bike turns absolutely on a dime. So you need to kind of get that misconception out of your head that if you come into this video thinking I'm going to show you how to make the setup, how to make the bike go fast, that's not how it is. I'm making a setup for me and what I think the bike needs to go faster in my hands. I'm making the bike more stable and more into what I like from a bike. It feels okay here on this outlap so far. Straight away the gearing I like more. So we were on the limit there a minute ago, about 156. So it's ever so slightly on the limiter. Now, this would be pretty much a perfect gearbox there now for a time trial. Now, I've said there a minute ago that's not really what I'm going after. I'm after something for a league race. I'm racing this bike at this track next week with some of the fastest people in the game. I need something to slipstream with as well. So what I'm probably thinking now is I'm going to go... I went up 1, 2 in the front, I believe is what I did. I'm going to go down 1 on the rear. It'll be a slight change, slight tweak. It'll just make the gearing maybe 2 or 3 miles an hour longer. It'll just allow me to maybe not kiss the limiter in the normal wake of going down into turn 1. And it'll probably just allow me to maybe just gain 1 or 2 miles an hour on someone in for a minute slipstream, which is what you want. Now, again, I'm kind of talking, not really focusing. I already have a quarter of a second here in the first half of lap. So already I'm thinking to myself, this is much better. It's better on corner entry, and it's just better everywhere else. Now, the engine braking will help slowing the bike down, provided it doesn't start locking the rear and making it kind of squirmy and basically pushing me into the corner because the rear end is sliding. If a tire is sliding, it's not gripping the road, which means it's not slowing down. You've lost your friction effect, we'll say. The rear is kind of lively now, but it's still what I would class on the edge of gripping and pulling the track back, which pulls the bike down into a corner. So again, the fact that I'm trying to accommodate and talk everything in this lap has not been perfect, but it's at about almost 4.5 tenths under there for split. So we're just kind of focused at the end of the lap. I think me saying that I'm not going to do a great lap has made me not do a great lap somehow. But again, we just want one more run into this last corner, down the pit straight to see what exactly And my top speed is so a quarter of a second off straight away, which is good. So we know the needle, as soon as I hit the 16 bang on, it's on the limiter. So we're about, yeah, to be fair, at the moment, I think the gearing's pretty much okay. I might try the other change to I can't even remember what I said now, the rear sprocket, I believe, and just see how bad the rest of the lap becomes, because there's no point. Okay, yeah, that was a rider error. There's no point essentially breaking the setup for potentially in a race situation gaining in slipstream, because you might qualify really well and you might get dropped by P1 and P2. You're in a lonely P3, and basically your bike is not optimally set up to run on your own because you're expecting to run in slipstream. So it's a bit of a conundrum. I know you're never going to have the perfect setup. That is one thing you just kind of have to, I suppose, kind of just think to yourself, I'm never going to have the absolute perfect setup. Every racer who's ever gone into a race in any category is always gone in with, I'm happy, but I'd like something more. That's kind of the mentality most people go in, is that, like, it's decent, I understand it, I trust it in most good conditions, that is. A lot of people go into races where, like, I'm not really happy. I don't think after half race distance the bike is set up very well, whereas I'm just trying to get a bike that I'm consistently able to hit the same lap time. I can basically lap the whole track without any major problems. If I come into this corner every lap and I have to just kind of hold the bike up like that, I'm afraid the front will go. I have a serious issue. At the moment, bike feels pretty good everywhere. It just needs a bit of a dialing in a bit more. So I'm going to kind of shut up again because I need to kind of focus and understand. It's kind of hard to accommodate fully and then try and think and ride of what the bike needs. So I'm going to do a few more laps, and you'll probably hear from me in between as what I'm talking about in terms of what I need from the bike. So I'm still thinking there's probably a bit of understeer. Now, the gearing affects the engine braking. I've changed the engine braking. The engine braking changes how the bike kind of sits and how it'll actually turn as well. So my understeer might be gone if I actually kind of just sit here for a second and think. But we're going to go for 1 or 2 more laps off camera, and I'll come back and give you more feedback on what I actually think. So if you ever need an example of how much time you lose by talking, to me it's about 1.6 seconds. So we jump straight down to 44s. Bike feels good. I'm sliding the rear a lot on power, but it's controlled, which I'm happy about. But I still would like a bit more of the bike to rotate a bit more on power. So I'm going to go and make a couple of changes, and I would like a stronger rear brake. So again, I kind of know what I want from that. That was one of those things where I kind of bolt on anyway before I even make a setup, because at this point I think I counted it, I have over 60 days on this game, which is a lot of time. So a lot of my setups I kind of know already before I go on track what I like from a bike. So I kind of can force a setup out by not even riding the bike. I just set the bike up the way I know I will like it. But that is kind of half the reason why we picked this R60, because maybe I won't like things like I normally like on this. But we're going to go back to this setup now, and straight away I'm going to change the rear mass cylinder. I'm going to downsize to 11mm. That'll give a stronger rear brake. That'll be really nice for me because I like a very strong rear brake. So 26, so I suppose I'll explain this a bit better. Front pressure, rear pressure, these are PSI. So this number here is what it started off with. You can kind of see here cold and hot temperature, front and rear for this bike. These numbers here, left, middle and right, these are your temperatures. This little graph here is your wearing. So when it's really unworn, it'll be up fully here. That's what a non-worn tire, fresh tire will say. As it wears, this white bar comes down, we'll say, and that kind of simulates how it's wearing. So this is a clockwise racetrack, a lot of right-handers, and you're on the edge of the tire, and like I was saying, I was spinning a lot, so I'm burning a lot of this time. Hot temperature is this, so this is what it is on track. The actual, or not hot temperature, hot pressure is what I meant to say. So 33.4 is what we're starting off, so we're losing a bit in the front, so the front is slightly underinflated. And again, you can see here, in fairness to X1, he has bar and PSI and your kind of working window. So we'll just go to the hot front. So at the moment, 33.4. Usually, most modders set the standard pressure as what the hot pressure should be, and you adjust it back to what it should be at. So for example, if this, I don't know if this is, what's the rear hot, is between 20, I'm sorry, read it now. So it's 26 and 28, I believe, or it could be 25. That's quite a wide window. I'd rather dial it in. So what I'm going to do, because that's a pretty big window, 0.2 of a bar in tire pressure is a lot in my eyes. So what I'm going to do, these are just standard base pressures. I'm going to try and get my hot pressures, A and B, to match these. So in the front I need to come up a good bit, in the rear I am slightly over, so I'm going to go, so basically you take one click out like that, and it goes 2, so I've gone down 2 clicks. That'll change this by more than 2. It's not linear, it's not going to be the exact same, so that won't be, now it can sometimes be, but more than likely I'm going to do a couple laps and prove that by taking 0.2 off here, this will go to 26.1. It'll kind of have a multiply effect on it. Now we're only going to do the rear because I kind of want to show off the fact that the tire pressures aren't linear, and you have to, you'll never get it perfect. It'll always be 1 or 2 psi above or below. You make one change, it drops 0.5 psi and you're 0.3 over the other way, so you have to kind of accept it. So I'm not going to change anything to the bike. I just want to prove that taking one click, 0.2 of a psi off the rear will affect this pressure quite a bit. So we're going to do a few laps and I'll show it off. I'll probably just cut to it now just to kind of show how it works. Now, I was quite a bit under pressure on the front. I have a feeling that's because I'm not really pushing the bike into the corner hard enough. There's a couple of corners where I'm feeling fairly good on the brakes, but at the moment, like into turn 10 for example, I felt like I kind of rolled in, and temperature will affect the pressure a lot. The heat goes up, pressure goes up. So if you're not really forcing the tire to do its job and on the limit of it, you can be slightly misguided by what the tire is telling you in the pit. So you need to kind of be honest with yourself. Am I kind of just rolling around trying to find problems, or am I actually on the limit? So there is kind of a method to the madness of kind of being very pushing the bike very on your limit in practice to kind of find out these issues, because there's no point getting into the race and being like, oh, I'm comfortable, I can do this lap time, and then you get dragged into a battle in the race and you find yourself in deep water because you're not in a place where you've been before, and your bike is doing things it's never done in practice because you never brought the brake into that situation in practice. So there's a lot to be done in a week leading up to a league race. There's a lot of setup to be doing and a lot of understanding and figure out. We're going to do 2 laps here on this tire, and that should be enough to kind of show off that my slight decrease in tire pressure has affected the hot pressure quite a bit. So you can see a perfect example there. Now I didn't do a note. Maybe if I went for a bit longer it might have leveled off closer, but I kind of was just using as a point that a lap and a half I think I did. It just shows that it's 0.4 psi down. So that, you could argue, go there. That's another 1 click, and that time is only 0.1 psi. So I probably think that's probably best because it'll get us back down to 26. So I'm going to save that as that. Now the front is going to be all off, so we're going to have to do another run to recalibrate the front. Now 18 litres is a full tank. We rarely run races long enough on this game that you'll need a full tank. I'm going to run 12. It's a 600. It's not going to be the thirstiest bike we'll ever run. 12 will be more probably. 12 to 15 is probably what realistically we'll run in a race situation. So again, you're just, when it comes to making a setup, you're getting the bike in a lot of little windows that will just optimize your performance on the bike. That's kind of what you're doing. You're not doing anything like completely destroying the front dampening to make some weird effect happen that allows the bike to get an extra 3 degrees lean. That's not really what you're going for. You're going for just going, right, I know my tire pressures are in the window, I know my gearing is right, I know the bike is in harmony where the front isn't overworking the rear, or the rear is not working enough to manage the front. Now I did say a while ago I had other little kind of ideas of what I wanted to do with the setup. Now kind of think to myself, what will I actually change, because I want a bit more on the nose, because I feel like the bike is slightly a bit lazy. So I'm going to, there's a couple of things I could do. So I can actually adjust the pivot. Okay, that's rule one thing out. The pivot's gone. I can increase rear right height, which should, if you just watch these fellas as I decrease it again, so you can see the rake angle increases and then decreases as I lift it. So I'm going to lift the rear right height. That just closes in the rake slightly. See, I'm happy the way the bike is braking pretty much in a straight line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, now 9.6 newton meters doesn't mean anything to me. So what I like to do is go all the way to the end. So 11.5 is our max strength in spring. So it's already, we're 0.6 off the softer spring. So the front is very soft. So what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to go even softer, because historically with a race bike, you like a stiff rear and a soft front. So what I'm going to do is now is just adjust springs to see if I can just get the balance of the bike slightly more oversteery off throttle. Now I can't adjust it in dampening yet, and I think I have ideas in dampening, but I still like slightly stiffer rear to see if that just does it, because at the moment the bike is riding pretty well. I don't want to adjust other things yet, so I'm going to go maybe I probably won't run this realistically, but I'm going to do a lap on it too just to see, because 9 Newton meters, obviously that's bottomed out with how soft you can go on 9.6 what we're on, so it's already kind of fairly soft at the moment. So that'll probably, if I wanted to turn more by using the front of the bike, I'll probably have to go into to be honest, I probably want to nearly do it at the rear of the bike, or maybe in the other tab with the geometry and how I get the bike sitting while it's under load. So I suppose, look, we're going to just go to them springs. I'm not going to touch the back actually, because there's a couple of different ways. We've already, what did I do here? I lifted the rear right. I did. So the rear right is slightly, so in reality, what I've done is I've slightly put bigger springs in the front. So by putting a softer spring, the spring is slightly bigger in both front forks. For me, I never do something like that. I don't think it really does enough of a need to feel. In my head, if I had an imbalance in the forks, I'd somehow manage to think. I'd end up telling myself while braking for corners, like, oh, the bike feels off balance. It must be the imbalance in the springs. So I always keep them equal. I keep them kind of have a bit of symmetry with the springs. So we're going to just go really soft in the springs. It already was, like I've said, and with the rear right height device adjusted, we'll see if we get it. And then I might do another couple of laps on this one to see if I get my tire temperatures and pressures in the window. So at the moment, the pressure on the rear should be fine, and we're kind of 80. We're looking decent enough on tire pressures there, and I should be enough happy with that. So we're going to do another run. Again, probably won't show much because I kind of want to just focus more on what the bike is doing. The more I talk, the less kind of focus on what I'm doing, so I end up kind of showing maybe as much. So I'll probably cut some stuff out just so you kind of get more information on it. And of course, as well, I forgot to mention we did lower the fuel load. If you can see top left there on the max HUD, we have fuel left and the calculation how many laps. So most leagues you'll kind of know before you even get to the event how many laps you're going to do. So for me, I kind of go, right, it's going to be a 10 lap race. I'll probably put in enough laps for 11, or enough litres, should I say, for 11 laps, and go along that road, and then have a bike full of fuel. Because again, most bikes are quicker naturally. We just take the fuel out. You don't need to do much in terms of setting it up to do a bit better in terms of a race versus quali setup. You want a bike that's good in the race. You make your points on Sundays is the kind of saying. So I'd be more looking at having a bike that is pliable on a Sunday than a Saturday. If you can qualify on pole, that's great, but if you can't do that lap consistently or be near it, you're not really going to score many points. So we're going to shut up and butt up here for a second, and we're going to just push on and see if I can notice anything. One thing I forgot to mention, as you probably just saw on the top left, this is a testing day. Someone just joined and just reminded me to say that it's better if you are practicing for league racing or any sort of practicing, making a private or public online session, because the track when it's played online is different to when it's in single player. I think it's something to do with the rubbering of the track. You're better off playing what you will be playing come race day, which is an online session, which will be the track one right now. So you can see some differences in track weather, temperatures, grip levels when you do it in a single player. So always do it as close as you can to what you'll be racing come the race day. So just saw there, just when I got a bit of lean angle and a kind of handful of front brake, it did struggle to kind of keep the rear end in check. Now, if I like the soft front springs, which I tend to do, I can adjust that by adjusting the rear dampening, or even the front kind of dampening, in terms of I can decrease, or I suppose slow down front compression. I can also try to add more weight to the back of the bike, but at the moment we're trying to get weight on the front of it to get it to naturally turn better. So you do end up by putting more weight over the front, taking weight off the rear. Again, it's a 50-50 split. Take one from the other, you're kind of robbing yourself in elsewhere. So in straight line it's a bit okay, because you can kind of manage it. But as you notice there, as we came into turn 10, just when you're slightly offset, when the bike was a little bit of lean and you're braking really hard, the bike got very nervous very quick. So the setup at the moment might be a little too extreme for that corner. Now it'll come down to whether can you manage in that corner, because again, like I said, the setup will never be perfect. If I deem the setup is better in 15 out of 16 corners, not sure how many corners this racetrack has, but we'll just say it's 15 out of 16, it's better, and into turn 10 on entry, slightly more on edge. If I can manage that, I'll race that. if I can get a percentage like that where I'm happy with the bike in like 87, 95% of the lap, I'm going to take them odds instead of trying to run it a little safer bike just to be a bit more comfortable. Now, when I say it's on edge, if I'm crashing 9 out of 10 laps through there, that's not on edge, that's unrideable. If I crash maybe 1 out of 15 laps in a race run, and I also know I was being a bit of a dick that lap, trying to do something stupid, or I was a bit lazy, wasn't committed, slightly distracted, you kind of, like, again, you need to have your thinking caps on when you're making these setups and actually sit down. You can't just push 100% at all time and risk it all, because you need to think that's not how you're going to run a race and a race lap. But again, that was my first lap. We were going faster. I was feeling slightly better in the longer corners. Now, again, it is good note, and I'm kind of not really doing a great example of it because I'm trying to make a video out of it. You should do 3 or 4 laps every time on a setup to get the tires in the window, get them in the right temperature window, and just get the pressures set, and everything warm up, everything gets hot, everything comes a bit better, and you just see your setup better. So again, I will recommend always doing a good few laps first. So once again, we are back in the pits, and you can see I really kind of gave it a good few laps there and pushed, and I got the tire pressures really hot. You can see I was spinning a lot because I've worn a lot there in a few laps, and it's gone up, so it's 0.7 over. So again, I'm going to have to go down. So I'm going to go 0.3 down, 2 clicks, and then that should multiply to be about 0.5 or 6, and then you're nearly back down here. So we did a full decent run off there, and again, I was pushing the front a bit harder, and we're still but 1 psi below. So if that's what we're at now, we're going to come up, because again, the more pressure put in, it'll kind of multiply as well with the temperature. So if we're needing to come up 0.9 psi, we'll go, all right, 1 click jumps us. Oh, that's a big jump in fairness. Yeah, so the front adjustment is really large, and that's quite strange to be honest. But right, so we'll suppose this is the situation you get in. So at the moment now, I'm about 1 psi off roughly what I want to be. Now this jumps me up 0.7, so that'll be almost perfect probably, but this might go too far the other way, so we'll try that. We also have different tires, and we are on the softest of both, so maybe looking at this tire might last a 10, 11, 12 lap race if I keep spinning it like that. So we might end up needing to go to the SE1, stiffer construction, less influenced temperature by the pressure, so then that might be all gone out the window. So what I'm thinking now is, at the moment I'm feeling a little bit of, when I'm off the throttle, so on throttle at the moment, when the bike is loaded, it turns pretty well. So the softer front springs and the little bit of weight increase, or the height increase in the rear of the bike, seems to be helping me through the long corners on throttle. My issue is now off throttle, and also in straight line braking, the rear of the bike seems a bit light. Now it is an R6, so it's not going to be a big heavy bike. So what I'm going to do with the front of the bike is, so if I decrease compression in the front, it'll slow, there it goes, affects how quickly the fork compresses. So if I slow it down, it'll keep the rear of the bike down more. Now, it'll also kind of affect me in the long corners, that it won't be able to keep the front loaded as much because it won't compress as fast, and as soon as I get off it, it'll kind of affect it. Now, what I could do also is I could slow down the rebound. So when I get to the, we'll say I'm trailing into turn 5, very difficult, trailing, just to release the brake, the front end will slower come back up to its kind of resting preload situation. So if I could slow that down, so by doing this, we'll say go down, was it 4 or 5 clicks there, that should also give me the effect I want, where the front of the bike isn't coming back up, which means it's slowly releasing the weight balance back towards the rear of the bike. At the moment, I feel like as soon as I'm off brake or throwing the bike in with literally very little brake, I don't have enough weight on the front to get the bike to rotate. I want more weight on front. So this is not what I do, but this is something I could do if I was getting off the brake and the bike was immediately understeering. As soon as I unload, you'd want a bit more less rebound because the bike is kind of unloading too fast. So that's something you could try, but I'm going to try basically, so rear compression. So as the rear of the bike, again, shows it there, as the suspension compresses. So at the moment, I feel like this is slightly too soft, and it's taking the weight off the front as the bike. So as I get off the brakes, come into the corner, the bike will naturally, the front will suppose expand again, and that compresses the rear. At the moment, I feel it's compressing the rear too much, which means the bike is sitting too much at the rear, and that affects then basically, if you think of like a chopper effect where the rear is really low, it won't let the bike turn as well. So I'm going to decrease the clicks on the rear compression. I'm going to slow down and stiffen it. I could also stiffen the springs. We went down that route a while ago saying that I could do that. I'm going to increase the front springs by ever so slightly, go back We're on 9.6, we'll split the difference to 9.3. I think that should be good for the front springs. So our front springs allow the bike to kind of bury the nose into the corner and rotate nicely and kind of have a good feeling through the corner. But back to the rear, the two options I'm at the moment thinking to get more rotation off throttle while the bike is at lean is basically somewhat stiffening the rear, either by stiffening the compression so that it doesn't squat as much, which means the weight will stay forward more, or it can overall just stiffen the rear of the bike. Now that could affect the bike in other ways, so we're going to try this and see. I don't think that'll make a huge effect. I think with the changes I'm going to make as well for the rebound, because I feel at the moment the rear is, as soon as I compress the front, the rear is flying up off the ground too easily. So we're going to go just 2 clicks down on the rear rebound. Again, I don't want to destroy the rebound by going down. If I make the bike too good then in straight line braking, it'll again affect how the bike turns and I'll lose that balance. So again, I'm going very, very detailed and I'm probably rambling on a lot, but I'm trying to just give you what's in my head of what I feel on track and what I'm thinking and what I want and how I'm trying to go about getting it. So again, we've already adjusted tire pressures. There's a lot in here you can do to adjust the bike, how it sits and how it goes around the corner. At the moment, I'm feeling okay with a lot of these. I'm going to see basically how this does now. If I don't get the action I want from this, I might go into geometry. You can change geometry to kind of get the same effect and leave the spring rates and the dampening alone. But at the moment, I think this should be okay. For me, if this doesn't really work, I'll probably go maybe up to, so let's see, I can go up 15 Newton meters on the rear. So we might try a slightly different rear spring and go from there. But again, we're going another few laps. You'll probably see a few clips and I'll probably talk along how I feel. So we've changed so much on the bike that I think we started off like a 48 and now we're down to a mid 40 or high 44. There will come a point where I'll make an adjustment and the lap time won't go better, and that's then why you have a couple of days before the race where you have to make yourself kind of nice and open, and you need to basically get yourself as comfortable as possible with the bike you've made and the track combination to basically get the bike. I suppose you need to ride the bike as well at the same time, in terms of you need to be able to, can't like completely rely on getting a really good setup. You can't keep changing yourself. Eventually you have to get to a point where you think the bike is okay and then you adapt yourself to it, and that's how you try and basically get consistency, because you want a bike that when you kind of get it consistent, you can then push the bike on, and maybe in your riding you find the last 1 or 2 tenths. So I might make this lap and might be 45s dead every single lap, and I might be thinking it feels better, more comfortable and more consistent, I feel like the lap time's better, it's just not showing it. And then I do a long run, and then in the last 2 laps I start to really knock it off, because again, when you change a bike, it's doing different things in your hand every time, so you need to maybe adjust your riding. Because like, I've changed the way the bike brakes, so now I have a bit more maybe rear stability in here, so maybe I can brake a bit deeper, and that's why the lap time isn't there, because I'm thinking, right, I have to brake at this point, I can't brake any later. If I brake any later, the rear will snap or the bike is too soft in the front. Oh, I've changed that, but you can't just go straight to the limit on your first lap, because you'll probably crash, and then what you'll think is, right, Seb's bad, I broke something, I don't like it, I'll revert, when you might be on the right steps, but you just didn't give yourself the kind of right time. So again, rambled plenty. I want to do a few laps now on this setup and rest my voice, and I'll see you in a few. So already on the 3rd lap, we're 0.9 over. It's been a rough lap I made, and again the bike has changed quite a bit in its characteristics, so it's a bit different to ride, but I can tell in the corners where I'm accelerating through it, the bike is turning tighter, but I feel like it's affected the bike in other places, so I'll need a couple more laps. You can see it's stiffer rear in there, it doesn't seem to react very well to sliding as much, so I've made what I would say a slightly better setup, but it would look lap time wise very slow, and it's caused other issues. So 2nd lap, 2 tenths, 10.5, poor exit, but again it just shows that straight in my first lap I was like, this is terrible, it's so much slower. I was at 1.1 slower, and then lap 2, tires come up to temperature better, I start to understand the setup slightly better, and boom, faster lap. So again, another thing to add, this lap now is probably going to go to window since I'm talking about a faster voice giving out as I'm speaking, rambling for 56 minutes now. A faster setup doesn't always mean a better setup. So perfect example is look at Repsol Honda, or I suppose they're just Honda, factory Honda in GP at the moment. In the data, whatever you want to say it, every swing arm, front fairing, aero package they bring, in some CFD file somewhere, in their wind tunnel, whatever way they work, it's saying that there's a better efficiency. improves airflow, improves downforce, improves rear grip, it does this, it does that. Yet they have been absolutely nowhere for years. So it does show that just because, in theory, on paper, something is 0.01% more efficient or faster, stronger, lighter, it doesn't always mean that will translate on track. So you need to, like, it'd be very easy for me to make the fastest setup for a track. That doesn't mean it'll actually work though. You don't want a really stiff rear, you don't want a really soft front to the bike, you don't want the rake angle jacked up so the back of the bike is really high, you don't want the, I suppose, the rake of the bike at the front really close so it's nice and nimble, but it could be unrideable, absolutely unrideable. But again, in theory, that'll be the fastest bike to get you around. That'll be a proper race bike and it'll get you around really nimbly. But you won't be the race that comes Sunday. That would be a nightmare. You'll be tank slapping, head shaking all the way down the straight. I won't know what to do. You'll have really bad instability on the braking. So again, it always comes down to, if you do 10 laps in a row and you're 3, 4, 5 seconds quicker on a setup that maybe you can't do as fast of a lap, you still get to the line 3 seconds before yourself. So if you're racing yourself, again, that could be, so probably can't see there, but in the middle of 1 and 2 there's a bit of a camber change. It does kind of happen on all bikes. That's more track based than setup for me at the moment. But as I was saying, that if you think you're racing yourself, if you can take 3 seconds off your overall race time by running setup B instead of setup A, which you believe has slightly higher potential, that could be the difference between a race win, a podium. It could be 5th to the 3rd. So there's 1 or 2 more things I want to try and adjust tonight, because again, I've spent 58 minutes now and I don't know how much of this will get scrapped and put into the video. I'd imagine it's going to be a much longer video, because I'm going to kind of keep in most of this rambling, because if I cut it out it probably won't make half as much sense. But again, I think at the moment now what I want is a bit more engine braking. We're going to go and adjust the slipper clutch to see if I can change that, just to get the bike slightly better in. Again, at the moment, when I release the brake into the corner, I feel the bike just runs on a bit now. So now what I want is a bit more in terms of slipper clutch. So you can change your pressure rate and your ramp angles. Usually what will happen, so if you go this way, bigger angle, less locking effect. Smaller angle, you have more locking effect. So what was it on from default? So it's on 35, so I'm not going to get a massive change. We could also still, we could in the ECU change the engine brake to 0. That would be a bigger step. So I'm going to try this slightly, or I'm going to try a slight different angle in the slipper clutch, see if that makes it better. And we go again. Now, again, I did a few laps there and did crash, so I'll probably throw off my tire pressures. But look at that, bosh! Look at that, bosh! So at the moment now, we have our tire pressures, chef's kit, perfect. So for 12 litres, if I was going to race this bike, these are tire pressures used. The rest of these here, the master cylinder obviously is default, the rear disc is standard, a front disc is standard. You could, if you were struggling with stoppies, adjust the front lever. At the moment I feel like the bike's okay, I can brake pretty deep. Again, you could kind of revert back your front springs if you're maybe burying the front of the bike too easily. At the moment though, I just want a bit more engine braking. Could also adjust the rear swing arm, a closer rear swing arm, kind of can change the chain tension and stuff, and it'll increase the way it basically can stop faster and get out of the corner better, because you have a shorter bike and wheelbase. What's the difference between each one in terms of wheelbase? It's a, oh fuck, so 1356, you gain, was it 17-18 mil? Ooh, that's a huge, that is huge, that's quite drastic. So we're gonna leave it on 1, because that's way too big of a movement for me at the moment. But yeah, we're gonna just try this one. Probably again, 0.5 of a degree isn't going to make a life-changing one, but it might just kind of dig the bike in slightly more and pull it around for me. And again, at this point then, I'm kind of got to the point where I'm pretty happy with the setup. The setup was never terrible out of the box. You can see if I just compare what I have to default, the red is what I've changed. These are the original default values. So again, slight different fuel. I haven't changed tires. We have a different rear mass cylinder, and we have different tire pressures. Front springs and rear rebound and compression has been adjusted. We have changed the front sprocket. I again could argue that I could go down a toot on the rear. I think I said up a while ago. Forgive me. In the moment when you're trying to say it, it all makes sense, but you can easily spit out the wrong thing. This might be a bit better for the race. Might preserve my rear tire, might give me a bit of slipstream again. What do we go up? 6 miles an hour. In reality, that's probably about 2 miles an hour. So you can see in the graph there. So we're going to leave that. Again, we change the ramp angles. We'll try that now. And we change the rear ride height. And again, your ECU setting is slightly changed. And we only have one engine map. So again, this bike is pretty kind of rudimentary. It's not the most in-depth high-spec bike that you're ever going to ride. It's an R6 with a couple of race fairings on it and slicks and stuff, and it's not the fanciest bike. So there's other bikes that you'd want to do other things to, like a lot of other bikes you can change. There's so many more options for discs. You can change the mast on the front. You'll have a whole extra stuff. You like, again, the fact I've only just changed the rear ride height in here and nothing else. There's probably more time in here if I really wanted to kind of get maybe an ultra fast race setup. You can see the weight when I put the rider on is 47.8, and I take it off and the bike is kind of unladen, so you can kind of see the weight is slightly more rarer. So that's probably why I was trying to get more back onto the front. And again, then the ECU, we've very little here to change. So yeah, it's time probably for our last run. After that, then it's just about nailing braking points, nailing turning, get everything down as a rider. And the thing is, though, like I'm doing 44s now, we'll say. If I started going down to the 43s, 42s, I might find that, oh my good God, the rear is completely unstable, and the setup changes I made now might undo it all, and I have to go back and completely undo the setup. Maybe I need a really soft rear and maybe compresses really well at them lap times and stuff. So at this point in time, on my first few laps of this track with this bike combination, that this is what I'm feeling. But again, as you kind of push yourself on, you get faster and faster on the track, and yeah, as you're prepared for your race weekend coming up, you can find that maybe in places you start changing how you approach the corner, how you ride it, and then what happens is you are after setting the bike up wrong for it, then you need to actually kind of go back and maybe it's no harm sometimes to go back onto default, bang in your right tire pressures and the gears, and just go again. And just go, right, this bike feels like it turns so much nicer. This bike stops amazingly compared to my current setup. What can I take from this that will make it better? And a simple thing, you might be gone too far on something and gone out of the operating window, and then maybe come back a couple of clicks and you can find the sweet spot. But again, we're going to shut up now again for a few laps and see if our little not swing arm, what do we change? Slipper clutch, see if that has made a difference. So I've done a couple of laps with the change to the slipper clutch. And this is a perfect example. So pretty much everything so far has kind of worked. Maybe the softer springs wasn't maybe the right direction fully, but I've kind of been pretty, I won't say lucky, because I've spent years trying perfecting, understanding how to make setups and stuff, but I've been pretty accurate so far in my diagnosis of what I need with the bike. This one's probably the first one that I'm probably 50-50 whether I want it or not. So it is better, but it's created another issue. Now the issue is that basically what I've done to slipper clutches, it locks the rear wheel up, so it basically slows down the rear wheel and makes it more locking effect faster. And this effect has made it easier to get the bike into the corner, because I have more kind of a bit more like a dragging effect the rear wheel, which means the bike turns in a bit nicer. What happens is mid corner, when I get off the front brake, I naturally love a bit of rear brake to get that last just bit of a pivot out of a bike and get the bike rotating. Now what it's done, and I'll try and show it here into the next right hander, because I have a first perfect example of showing it, where I brake late like so, back my gears, get off my front brake, and see the way the bike is kind of squatting it and it's kind of rotating, and that's being very gentle on the rear brake. I'm basically now I wouldn't say over rotating, I'm probably overloading the rear wheel and rear tire with the rear brake now. So that's a slight issue because it's affecting the way I have to ride. So this is again back to the point where I made a while ago, where I said, is this the right way for me? Is it better? Because it feels much better in here. I feel I can get much closer to that apex, which in turn then better run up here and gets me into turn 9 faster. And again in here, it feels like just the bike just pulls down to this apex a bit better. But in corners then, like turn 10, the rear brake just becomes too sensitive for me, and I feel like I'll lose a bit of time. So then it'll be a matter of I'll have to do maybe 10-15 laps in a row. And what I mean is, I used to be able to just hold the rear brake and that wouldn't happen. So I've now made it that the rear of the bike is unstable while the rear brake's been pressed. That's kind of a bit of an issue for me, because I love having a lot of rear brake on mid-corner, and it just slows and rotates the bike for me nicely and sits down and gets the bike ready. You can see, look, the way the bike's kind of not yawing, but it's kind of compressing and kind of wiggling under braking because it's on edge. So I've kind of made it maybe potentially faster because it seems better off the rear brake. But the amount of rear brake I use, I don't know if it'll work for me, because again in here it seems better and it just feels better. Now the lap time is pretty much the same because it's not a huge change. It's more of a kind of quality just to keep the riding better. But to be honest, I'm probably going to do this last lap. I'll push on with you live on board and see how it goes. But I'll probably leave it here because I feel like this is a pretty decent setup. Oh, we locked the front there. Oh, we're going to replay and get a look at that because that front was dead. So just to finish up today's video. I know it's been a long old one. Probably see it here, put into a nice bit of slow motion and turn it off, but probably actually just call it here with this nice little slow mo and end the video off here. Yeah, you saw pretty much start to finish there how I started with a bike that was about 4 or 5 seconds off the pace. I've got now to a 44.7. Now there's more time in it. Again, you can see, look, the front there starts to go as the rear unloads, and it's about to lock now. It's gone fully, and you can see a puff of smoke, and the bike goes back to me. Now, it's also a good sign that the bike came back to me. If I crashed there, you could be thinking, right, the front of the bike is too soft. You could think the rear of the bike is too stiff. It's not taking the weight off when it locked. Like, a lot of different things could be at play, but again, the bike came back to me, which is a good thing. But we're going to end it there. Again, if you've any questions, let me know in the description. Of course, I do have my own Discord, so if you'd like to jump into that, it'll be linked in the description. I can help you a bit more kind of one-to-one there in terms of fix things, because a lot of people have game issues. And again, I'll be a lot more active on my Discord server than I will be in kind of YouTube comments. I kind of look at them maybe once or twice a day, whereas nearly always have Discord open or anything on my phone, or while I'm on my PC, it's kind of open in the background, so it's an easier way to get to me. But we're going to end it there. I hope you have enjoyed it. It's an insight into how my brain works and how I make my setup, so I hope it has helped. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I should see you in a future video. Slán go fóill.